And we know the Bush administration and other higher-ups in government didn't actually care about the FBI nor 9/11 Commission investigation results later on, when separate from the hundreds of Middle Eastern and Muslim suspects arrested in the dragnet after September 11th, and then downgraded to immigration and naturalization charges, over 100 Israelis were also arrested for spying as a result, and only detained for a couple of months through some level of diplomatic immunity, eventually being deported back to Israel. These arrests reached as high as 200 Israelis, according to reports later on in March 2002. But the most popular case of Israelis arrested after 9/11 is the infamous dancing Israelis, also known as the high-fivers in Weehawken, New Jersey, working for Urban Moving Systems, the reported Mossad front company, as the high-fiving Israelis were witnessed filming both planes strike the Twin Towers from Doric Towers parking lot across the Hudson River next to their white UMS van and celebrated, which led them to being reported to local police with their vehicle and license plate number put on an APB all points bulletin, BOLO, be on the lookout, and later pulled over in their white van which tested positive for explosives. A subject I have extensively covered in films before, particularly explosives on the George Washington Bridge, 9/11 Truth or Urban Myth. According to the partially declassified FBI full field investigation released around the 10-year anniversary through a Freedom of Information Act request in 2011 about Urban Moving Systems and other Israeli-owned moving companies in Jersey, which also indicates that there were other Urban Moving Systems vans from the New Jersey location operating out of state during the attacks. And on Section 1, page 36, it states that a UMS van was seen outside of Boston much earlier in the day on 9/11. It says, Newark also received information which revealed that on about 1 p.m., 9/11/2001, 3 dark-skinned males had been observed driving a white van bearing New Jersey plates on Spirit Brook Road near Nashua, New Hampshire, just outside of Boston. According to the report, the driver of the van appeared to be lost. The van had a sign on the side for Urban Moving Systems. Although this is quite a revelation, particularly for some serious 9/11 truth seekers, this APB bolo for the Urban Moving Systems van outside of Boston was picked up by Pennsylvania newspaper Lancaster New Era on September 12th. But because of the limited time window when the Boston area UMS van was spotted, it's almost hard to determine whether it was the first suspicious UMS van called into the authorities after the attacks, or the one generally known from New Jersey at the Doric Towers with the high-fivers, witnessed by apartment resident Maria, who initially reported to the police what she witnessed after her husband came back from jury duty. The police report from Massachusetts van says dark-skinned males. As pointed out in my previous film, on the afternoon of September 11th at 4:20 p.m., before the first all-points bulletin for the Be on the Lookout of the high-fiving Israelis' white UMS van in Jersey from Joe Shortsleeve.
Written on the back is Urban Moving Systems.
He had also reported this 9 minutes earlier.
Thank you very much, Robin. I'm being brought some late information here that I'll share with you at this moment. It comes out of Hanscom Air Force Base in Bedford. We're being told there that the Office of Special Investigations at Hanscom Air Force Base at the just out in Bedford has confirmed that an all-points bulletin, an APB, has been put out for 2 cars, each containing at least one Middle Eastern male, one Middle Eastern appearing male. This information has been confirmed by the Air Force as well as the Bedford Police. Again, the Office of Special Investigation has an all-points bulletin out for 2 cars, each containing a man of Middle Eastern descent.
2 different vehicles with quote-unquote Middle Eastern men? The Hanscom area? The Hanscom area is in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, in the direction of New Hampshire.
And Jack, we have learned now that authorities are looking for a number of vehicles, 2 cars with at least 2 men of Middle Eastern descent in the Hanscom area. And nationally, they're looking for a white Chevy van with New Jersey plates. And on the back bumper, it says something to the effect of Urban Moving System. So all points bulletin out for these vehicles and these individuals. How they may be connected, none of us actually knows at this point.
What authorities were doing looking for these 2 vehicles there at this time of the day on 9/11 is unknown, but being paired here with WBZ4 Channel 4 News on an afternoon report for an APB bolo outside Boston with the Israeli high-fivers UMS van in New Jersey seems possible that maybe one of these 2 additional vehicles with Middle Eastern men may very well have been this UMS van with 3 dark-skinned males detailed in the FBI police reports. But what was this white UMS van doing outside of Boston on 9/11? Was the van eventually apprehended and suspects detained? As you might recall, earlier CNN reports with Bill Delaney on September 14th.
Investigators here in the New England region following thousands, really tens of thousands of leads as they try to understand how 10 hijackers hijacked those two 767s last Tuesday. Now, one intriguing fragment. I'm standing at Eastern Air Charter in Norwood, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, where law enforcement officials and other sources tell us several days before the hijacking, men identified as Middle Eastern types were here at Eastern Air Charter making inquiries. They wanted to know about chartering a twin-engine jet. They wanted to know about that jet's fuel capacity. They wanted to know how soon they could charter such a jet. Could they do it quickly? And they wanted to know how long it would take to fly to New York. Now, one high law enforcement official I spoke to said to me, Joey, he believed that there was a high possibility, he said, that these were either the hijackers themselves or another team. Now, of course, the FBI hasn't ruled out the possibility that other teams are still at large. Eastern Air Charter officials themselves downplaying all this, but another source told us law enforcement authorities have been here, he said, tearing the place apart.
Now, this may sound like another clue or suggestion in that the additional unidentified Middle Eastern types, as Delaney said, may have been targeting another airport just outside of Boston, Eastern Air Charter, or the Norwood Memorial Airport. That has nothing to do with our additional Urban Moving Systems van outside of Boston or suspected vehicle within that vicinity in the Hanscom Bedford area. But again, according to the Boston Herald on September 15th, suspicious visits to two airfields are probed by Tom Farber and Maggie Mulvihill. 3 Middle Eastern men went to Hanscom Field in Bedford and twice visited Norwood Airport in July and August looking for aviation equipment and information about leasing a jet, heightening investigators' suspicions of a sinister connection to Tuesday's devastating attack on America, sources confirmed. While federal authorities executed the first of a series of expected search warrants in the Boston area yesterday, FBI agents and local investigators returned to Norwood Airport to determine if the reported activities of 3 men who claim to be Middle Eastern royalty are connected to the terror bombings. They claim to be pilots from a Middle Eastern royal family, and while they were here, they said they wanted to buy some radio transceivers, one source said. We still don't know who these people are, but it sure looks like it could be connected to the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. According to sources, the 3 men showed up at the pilot shop at Norwood Airport on July 28 and inquired about purchasing airline transceivers, radios that can both monitor and transmit airline frequencies. The men were told by employees of the Norwood shop they didn't have what they were looking for and suggested they try Hanscom Field in Bedford, sources said. The men took a taxi to Bedford where they inquired about the equipment, but were told what they wanted was sold at Norwood Airport. The men returned to Norwood by cab and, apparently resolving the confusion, bought an unspecified number of transceivers and possibly other aviation equipment, sources said. Money was apparently no object, said a source. They took cabs back and forth without any concern to the cost. About 10 to 15 days before Tuesday's attack, the men returned to Norwood Airport and asked an employee of Eastern Air Charter Incorporated a series of detailed questions about leasing a twin-engine jet and about the plane's fuel consumption and related issues. They wanted to know what the fuel consumption would be from point A to point B, and so forth, said a source. It was very detailed and very specific. Authorities first went to Norwood Airport immediately following Tuesday's attacks after the presence of the 3 men there was reported, sources said, adding one of the destinations discussed for the leased jet was New York. Sources said the men also wanted to know if they could pay cash, how quickly they could lease the jet, and if they could get it on short notice. Well. It seems we have some glaringly strong coincidences going on here, and that the suspects Bill Delaney reported on is at least part of the APB Bolo from WBZ-4 on the afternoon of 9/11, with the 2 vehicles in the Hanscom Bedford area, which incidentally, according to this Boston Herald article, also seems to fit the description of the FBI police reports on the Urban Moving Systems van outside of Boston up near the Nashua, New Hampshire area, which is just near Bedford. However, there's a possibility we might know what the model of the second vehicle in the Hanscom Bedford area, according to the Lowell Sun in Massachusetts, September 12th. Reservists, guardsmen stand ready, Devons, Hanscom move to heighten alert. Closer to home, the Devons Reserve Force Training Area and Hanscom Air Force Base in Bedford went to heightened security alert as a result of yesterday's attacks, as well as Westover Air Reserve Base in Chicopee and Otis Air National Guard Base in Bourne. Last night, all roads into Devens, a former U.S. Army base, were blocked to traffic. The most alarming rumors centered around Hanscom, where Massachusetts State Police were looking for a blue-green Toyota with two Middle Eastern-looking men who were asking directions from the Bedford base to Peace International Tradesport in Newington, New Hampshire. And if that didn't sound strikingly similar, being in the same vicinity and direction towards New Hampshire, in the Nashua Telegraph September 12th, FAA workers on alert, children evacuated from daycare. It says that about 80 to 100 kids were evacuated from the Launching Pad Child Learning Center on Tuesday morning, September 11th, because of its proximity to the Federal Aviation Center on Northeastern Boulevard, which is operated by and adjacent to the Boston Air Traffic Control Center. The article says the FAA was feared to be a potential target during the spate of airplane bombings around the northern eastern United States during the morning hours, and the FAA told the daycare center for 6-week-olds to 6-year-olds to lock down Tuesday morning, and shortly thereafter issued an order to evacuate. Sometime during the chaos, a bomb threat was also made against the school. In the same document aforementioned earlier, it also details this scenario going on at 10:55 and 11:05 a.m. It's hard to figure out whether any of this has to do with the two vehicles, and if they were the additional Urban Moving Systems van or blue-green Toyota mentioned in the Lowell Sun. But it is strikingly similar given the bomb threat, as with the high-fiving Israelis and their UMS white van in New Jersey, additionally detailed in the APB Bolo, according to the arresting Bergen County police officer Scott DiCarlo, that the van may have possibly been carrying explosives to target the George Washington Bridge. But it's difficult to puzzle when there hasn't been any independent investigative exploration in this area, or even when more pages are still redacted in the field reports within the FBI documents pertaining to New Jersey than those that have been unredacted. But when considering all the damning evidence of at least foreknowledge, coordination would have been key in the attacks, especially if the high-fiving Israelis had such advanced knowledge on the events than what the truth movement conventionally believe, being set right in the parking lot of the Doric Towers, able to film the first plane, Flight 11, strike into the North Tower from across the Hudson River. Would the UMS presence outside of Boston near Nashua, New Hampshire, likely have to do with the fact that Flights 11 and 175 departed from Logan, in which the attack initiation point starts from? The fact that there are reports on additional suspects who were seen even arguing in the Logan parking lot, added with the other aborted hijacking attempts, and also the following day on 9/12, with additional suspects arrested at Boston hotels, with more additionally included in the Boston Herald article aforementioned on the Hanscom and Norwood fiasco. Could the function of this and other white UMS vans outside of Boston have been to provide transportation for any additional, unaccounted for 9/11 operatives? Could it have something to do with the 3 Middle Eastern men previously seen at Norwood, particularly for the type of equipment they purchased, airplane radio transceivers? Could that also have to do with the bomb threats coming out of the Federal Aviation Center and Boston Air Traffic Control in New Hampshire, who had originally tracked and attempted to communicate with Flights 11 and 175 after departing off course from Logan? It may very well be, and it also could be that Urban Moving Systems had employed Al-Qaeda operatives or Arab terrorists just as a means of support or helping to aid in the attack.